Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Tony Sirianni podcast. I am thrilled and delighted to have my good friend Rich Steinmeier here. Rich is the CEO of LPL. As if you're living under a rock lately, you wouldn't know that. I don't know if you remember this, Rich, but probably like 8 years ago, we did. You might have been, if you weren't the first guest on the podcast, you were one of the first, and it was when we just had a recording.
I
And
remember.
if you remember that, you were new to you were pretty new to LPL at the time,
Yep.
if not brand new. And well, I remember the thing I remember most is the parachute pants story. I thought that was that was
MC
pretty.
Hammer Pants.
Yeah, do you
MC.
ever talk about that still?
I mean, after I did that podcast with you, everybody asked me about it, and then um, I have a really close friend who had worked here, the MC Hammer thing, and so this is what he got me, which is an original MC Hammer
Oh,
doll.
that's the best.
With the
That's
pants
awesome.
and everything. So yes, it became lore for anyone who had listened to you and
Oh,
I
that's
together
great.
that my very first paycheck went to buying an MC Hammer mustard yellow parachute pants outfit. Yes.
The mustard yellow is the key, I think, to
Oh,
that
yeah.
to that story. But that's good. But it brings up actually an interesting point because, I think most advisors, and I know you see this every day, most advisors are like the first people in their families to do pretty well. You know what I mean? And then as they get on and down the road, they find it's something they can, give to their children, that they can create, long-term wealth for their families.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, the way the world works today, I know the way you guys do things at LPL, you can plan about succession, make plans about passing this thing on, and having a business that has real value. It's got to be one of the most satisfying things, sitting in your position. You can help so many people kind of achieve that, especially coming from when you bought MC Hammer pants with your first paycheck, and now you're doing pretty well.
I think that it's one of the things that I'm most envious about, actually, is the intergenerational nature of how so many of these practices work. For years, wished after I realized how amazing this industry was, and I kind of was down much more down the path of a leadership side. I have three kids who I think the world of, and my wife is sharp as a whip. And so the concept where we could have worked together, I just got too long in the tooth in where I was. But I think that is special in our industry, where you take these entrepreneurs who have hung this shingle, and this first generation, it oftentimes is so difficult to actually make that work. And then, and that's why I love independence as well, because in independence, they control how their business evolves and how they get it to the next generation. We've built a lot of solutions. We call them liquidity and succession, to be the stewards of independence, to help a firm get from one generation to the next and monetize that first generation, and then have that next generation keep running the same practice, serving the clients the same way. And it resonates really well with us.
It's a weird business in that it's really a bottom up business. I mean, it's an upside down peer. I mean, you've done pretty well in leadership. I've done all right with it. But it's all about the advisors. It's one business. It's all about the employees. And the better they do, the better we do at the, when you're running things. And it's just sort of it's just set up in a way that you don't see other businesses set up.
So I've spent a lot of time since I've moved into this new role 7 months ago, learning from the best companies and how they do things. And so that's, there's a thing at Nordstrom called the inverted pyramid, and that's actually how I think we think our business should be run, which is that the normal pyramid is that as you move up, you become more senior in an organization, and that's how a pyramid looks. But if you actually invert and flip that pyramid and say that the clients are the most important, and for us, clients are advisors, clients are the most important constituency, and then the folks who directly serve them are the most important people at the firm, and it is the role of people below them to make them successful successively. And so if you look at that bottom of the pyramid, technically I would find myself on the very bottom of that pyramid. So would our management committee. And our job is to actually make the people that are above us in the pyramid successful. And with everyone having that focus on serving advisors, serving our clients, is the most important element of the role. And I think that actually is the way this business works. That's not how all firms work.
No, see, I was just going to say that's not.
Yeah.
It's good that you say it because not all firms work like that. A lot of firms put themselves at the top, and they're driven by a quarterly, number that they have to reach and they have to hit, and that's kind of what they're concerned about. And working there can sometimes feel like, I'm not top of mind for these guys.
Well, I think that there are firms that think that the advisor is an annoyance. And I think that those firms are failing. And I think that is a slow retreat in the marketplace. And the firms that know that they only are here to serve advisors, that's our firm. We show up every single day. It's our job to earn their business every day. That's what, again, another orientation to the independent construct is it's their business. It's our
Yeah.
job to earn it because we're in the worst case where they're a vendor, in the best case where they're a partner. In any scenario, it is very clear who runs and makes the calls. And I don't think that's how many firms think. And that's
I
the
don't think
reason that
so.
those firms aren't being successful.
Well, I think that's the reason, advisors are voting with their feet for the firms that they think are successful. And that's kind of what's been going on in the business for a while now. And I think that the notion that hey, we don't have to run. I think a challenge you have, and I'll ask about this, the challenge you have with a firm that's so large, such a big firm, to keep that mindset, and you clearly have it, right? And the LPL is thought of as good service and all that kind of stuff. How do you make sure that everybody, because now you got a lot of employees, you got 30,000 advisors and they got all the support staff. How do you keep that going? Because that's a mindset that we had at Legg Mason. And I think there were like, a couple thousand employees at Legg
Yeah.
Mason, great firm. So how do you keep that with a large institution?
So the first is that you have to start thinking about how you share with employees what it means for this firm to be successful. Like we start with our values, right? So our first value is to pursue greatness. Our second value is to do the right thing. Our third value, which is really right in the middle of it, is ensure our clients' success. Our fourth value is win together. And our fifth is create and share joy. But if you think about that, then you get folks who self-select into your values, and
Yeah.
at the heart of our values, and that's why we place it in the middle, is driving our clients' success. And so now, look, there's a lot more, Tony, to do than that. The truth is, you actually have to. So this is the journey we're going through, which we're learning a lot from Commonwealth about. The journey we're going through is actually delighting our employees in the way that we aspire to delight our clients. And if you do that, and you can tell them why we show up every day, which is to serve advisors, and they actually believe it at their core and believe that this is a place where they feel well treated, well respected, and can bring their full selves to work. And they embrace that vision. I was just on with Joe Deitch, the founder of Commonwealth, this morning, and he was talking about how critical it is that every single employee understand and share the same vision. But if they do, and you empower those folks who work with advisors, and that's the key that we're going through in
That's
our
the key. Yeah,
transformation.
the
Yeah.
empowering is the key. Other firms don't do that. Other
You
firms.
have to empower them. Think of that's like a Ritz-Carlton model where everybody has $2,000 at their discretion to make sure you give an exceptional client experience. In the same way, that's how the folks who serve and support our clients most directly need to be empowered to make the decisions to solve problems for them. And that's the journey we're on, I think. And if you get to that journey, the size doesn't matter. And I know there's a narrative out there that we're large. And I'd say from an AUM perspective, we feel good that we're likely going to be, pushing towards the third largest broker dealer in the country. But that has more to do with about scale, scope, capabilities, investments, the ability to weather cycles and not be worried about what happens in a particular economic cycle because you
Well,
want to be able to have a partner that's continuing to advance.
if you can keep those good vibes that you pointed out in those, in the core values of the firm going and have scale, that's the trick. But if you can do that, then I think you've got something, very cool. The ability, somebody who wants to join LPL, and especially in the independent world, there are a lot of interesting and cool independent, platforms and ideas out there, but they get to be difficult if you don't have the balance sheet that can, help you with a succession plan or help you go out and buy another business or help you. I mean, there's something to be said for having scale, experience, and all that. Your enterprise value grows exponentially if you've got. I don't know any other businesses that you can get into. We have a partner who's going to pay to watch it grow and will buy it from you when you retire, or to our point earlier, help your kids buy it. I
Yeah.
mean, rare.
I think there's an element there which it's not often talked about. I think it's talked about from maybe a negative side, but we have permanent capital. We're a publicly traded company. We have to report every quarter so you can see the health of your partner. You can actually see the free cash flow that we generate that allows us to actually go make investments in advisors' practices. We're not beholden to, a duration in time of a holding at a company and wonder what is going to happen next on our journey because it's not really controlled. Our advisors that choose to be here with us have a pretty good sense as where this journey is headed. Because our goal is to be the best firm in wealth management, and they understand that it's not to monetize the business at the end of a cycle.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on, one of the things that's, if you looked at what's going on in the recruiting world today and advisors voting with their feet and moving around, equity is a big part of it. But some of the stories are, stories, and advisors don't ask the right questions. It's sometimes a situation where the cobbler's kids have no shoes, where, they would ask 100 questions for their clients, but they don't ask themselves, well, who actually owns this stock, this equity that I'm getting? And as you said, short duration, short term, impatient capital running a business, that's not healthy for anybody. You're finding the right partner is key. It's not good for your clients. It's not good for anybody.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of really talented leaders and there's a lot of really good firms out there. And so, but I think some of them have a shorter duration to how they think about. And I think so many of these firms were set up for the monetization event at the end. And that oftentimes doesn't have much to do with the advisor. It often has to do with the principles of the firm, monetizing the firm. That's perverse. It's
Yeah.
reversed because exclusively the value is created through the advisor.
Right. And well, interesting. So I want to talk a little bit because we have a relatively short time about we mentioned it, the Commonwealth um, piece. How is it going? What are you hearing from the advisors? More importantly, what are they? Because I know you, and I know you're out there talking to these guys every day. What are they telling you? What concerns do they have? And then what are they finding maybe that, hey, this is pretty cool. I didn't know this.
Yeah. So I think they're on a journey. I think this is a journey where if you think about Commonwealth is a very special firm.
Yeah.
It really is. I've thought it was a special firm since the day I walked through the doors at LPL. I think our firm has held Commonwealth in reverence for the 7 years that I've been here. And what we thought is true. But I will tell you, you know, everyone who moved to Commonwealth said, okay, this is they don't pull their heads up to look at other firms because that firm is so exceptional. And that's why we're working so hard to make sure it is clear to them that we're keeping that firm intact. And I know there's so many times where firms come together and you integrate the firms. And then there are times when you don't. There are times when you actually keep something that is truly special in the marketplace and what kept it special, you keep that intact. So what I would tell you in this kind of conversations that we're in, so many of the advisors were caught off guard.
Yeah.
And so I think in the beginning, for a couple of weeks, I think it was hard for them to even receive messages. There's a lot of emotion in it. There's a lot of connectivity with the senior leadership team. There's a lot of connectivity over decades. And so,
Well, but isn't that what you want? You want a place where they love it.
yeah,
The
I
folks who
also
work
want
there
a place where
love
we're
the
keeping
place.
all
And you
their
want,
senior leadership team together, right? So
right.
all those people that they love, we're keeping them together. We're keeping their service experience together. But yeah, no, that we again, my articulation would be that we and I felt very privileged for us to even be in the conversation and then to be selected because they had the pick of the litter. They could have
Yeah.
chosen, and they didn't choose for money. They chose for the best fit for advisors and what firm they thought was going to be the ones that would help advisors succeed over the next 5 years. That's actually the vote that occurred at the end. And I think that's an endorsement of our firm. So I think advisors are getting to know us. We're having really good conversations as they get through that cycle of emotion. And I think
Sure.
that's a fair cycle. They didn't ask for this. And so there's a lot of this that weighs heavily. As they get into doing their due diligence, we're getting really productive conversations. I think the coming together of these two firms is really, I think, the two firms that anchor the 1099 model. I think you had an exceptional service firm and an exceptional capabilities firm. You bring those two firms together and commit to each of them keeping what makes them great. And I don't know that there's a peer. Actually, I know there's not a peer. Maybe I should
Well,
say it more
that's the
definitively.
value prop, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the value prop right there.
Yeah.
Bringing those two things together. I like that. Well, look, best of luck with it. I know that you're an approachable guy and that these guys are coming to you, and if they're smart, they're coming to you to ask the real questions.
Having great conversations. I'm having them all the time. And so look, the folks need to understand, and it's that this is a big decision. This is their business. This is their life's work.
Life's
And
work.
so they want to make sure they're doing the right thing and they have a partner that they can continue that journey. And that's actually so much of what this is. And I think that's where the culminating event is starting to feel like they are starting to realize that this is actually just continuing Commonwealth. Whereas I think at the beginning there was skepticism and a lot of competitors out there saying there's no way this would happen. But I think I've said in a couple of different forums, it's the only way we bid the property was to keep it intact and keep it together. No one else did. And so no one else believes that we would do it because they didn't bid it that way because they don't see the scarcity in a firm that people love.
Yeah.
You don't change a firm when people love it. And so we're not going to.
Well, that's great. Well, that's what you're paying for. So good.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a form of consolidation industry
Yeah.
wide. Let's just pull back a little bit. So you see, that's an example of some and probably a good example of positive consolidation. But do you see it continuing throughout the industry? I mean, that seems to be, scale and all that stuff seems to be what people are looking at. Certainly, a lot of activity wrapped around. Even with the markets kind of dicey, it's been a lot of activity.
Yeah, I think if you look at any moment in time, I think it's hard to say, oh, this quarter, depends on when you get into some volatility or it depends on even where the credit markets are. You'll see some ebb and flow. But if you're asking me where the direction of trade is, it's absolutely in consolidation. It is absolutely that the barriers to being at scale continue to raise. It is absolutely that the complexity needed to make investments need to be higher. And advisors have an expectation of the continued march forward in their capabilities. And I would tell you, Tony, especially as you think about new and emerging technologies that are meant to disintermediate advisors. And like, let's be unambiguous about it. That, those retail facing firms, Schwab, Fidelity, Merrill Edge, they're going to continue to build capabilities to disintermediate advisors. And so you actually have to be able to punch against those firms and have the same investment levels, but to use those same technologies to promote advisors. And that's where we come in. That's why I don't run away from scale. We need to take AI, we need to take agentic AI enhancements and give those to advisors so that they can spread their wings, so that they can be omnipresent, so that they can have virtual agents that help them deliver broader scale to their practice, not be scared of it on folks who are trying to disintermediate them.
Yeah, I think this is actually a fun topic, but we don't have time. I'd like to really get into the AI stuff with you. I'm
Yeah.
not so convinced that it's a super friendly thing. It's certainly a tool. I also think there's so much regulation that's going to come around it. It would behoove you to have a firm partner that's thinking about it in a smart way because remember when everybody got caught flat-footed with texting and all this other stuff. So you just don't want that to happen in the same way. Um, I also want to ask you, I had something else I was looking at. Your first quarter returns are pretty good. So the next quarter and the next couple quarters that come out, that's going to be, the Rich Steinmeier era. This is going to start to be, do you feel the responsibility? I mean, it's going to start to be your stuff. I know the groundwork has been laid, but look, the next stuff, the next 5 years, the Commonwealth stuff, that's going to be on your watch.
Tony, this firm is way bigger than me. This firm is way bigger than any single leader. And in fact, I would tell you the definition of success for me at this firm is actually that I make very few decisions and that I actually distribute decision making across the firm, and that we build an exceptional leadership team, which I feel very strongly about that we have. But yeah, I mean, look, this is the continuance of a 36-year journey for a firm that believes adamantly in independence, believes in the integrity of the independent model, and believes in scale, flexibility, and that advisors, we should be led by where advisors want us to go. And if you listen intently to that, you can be really successful. And so things that we're, emphasizing maybe a little bit more is making sure we're as responsive as possible to advisors, taking friction out of the system, right? Like making this journey easier for them, building advanced capabilities so we can go toe to toe with the wires. And I think for us, it's a journey, but yeah, like I'm proud of where this firm is, but I would say in no way, shape, or form is this firm single threaded through an individual. I just have the privilege of, being at that bottom of that pyramid, making sure the people above me can be successful serving clients.
And another thing, well, it's good results, and I'm sure they'll continue. Where do you see the business over the next 5 years? What's on your radar screen?
For us, I mean, for us, I think you are going to see a continued, like the death of the advisor is dramatically overstated. I think you will continue to see the complexities of the markets that we participate in. You're going to see more folks looking to have advisor-based relationships. And so for us, it's around building capabilities to allow advisors to build flexible practices. Obviously, you've already talked about this intergenerational wealth transfer, and not specifically, I'm talking about the transfer of advisors' practices. There's emerging technologies that are going to come into the marketplace. You've got to be on top of them. I feel good about this firm being the leading firm in support of advisors, uncompromised. I think about the firm, I use this analogy that, you want to be like my analogy is a boat. You want to be driving the boat rather than living in the wake that is created from the boat. And that means you've got to take risks. It means you've got to set the agenda in the industry. And that's how I view us over the next 5 years, not reacting to change in the industry, driving change in the industry.
Oh, that's great. Anna Kendrick.
Yeah,
That's kind of fun.
it's
So,
pretty
so tell us a
awesome.
little, yeah, very cool. So tell us a little bit about what's going on there.
Well, I think, this firm, for LPL years ago, it was, hey, don't LPL, don't get in the way. Come behind me. And we used to survey our clients. We'd survey them every year, and you get like 80% would say, hey, we don't want you to be brand forward. We want you to be brand back. The last couple of years, it's been like 70% of advisors saying, hey, we'd like your brand to work more. We do a pretty in-depth net promoter score evaluation, and our brand was one where advisors wanted greater investment, and they were telling us consistently. So we made a decision to come forward in the marketplace with a brand that can resonate for end investors on behalf of advisors, mostly because they're in partnership with us. And sometimes you'd get, hey, who's this LPL? It's very clear who Schwab and Fidelity are. It's clear who
Right.
Merrill Lynch and Morgan Stanley are. Those are great firms, by the way. And we're a great firm too, just not enough people knew who we were. And our advisors would get that question. And listen, Anna, I think that's an exceptional choice. That is somebody who is as amazing in person and off the screen as she is on the screen. An actress, a singer, a director who is humble. It fits. She just feels a lot like our firm, and our partnership with her is fantastic.
Right. Well, that's kind of a high note. So believe it or not, we've actually, hit our time. But anything I didn't hit that you wanted to talk about before we go? I just wanted to get the parachute pants out of the way. That was
No,
one.
and I wanted to get out why you have 5,000 pictures behind you out of the way
Uh,
too. So
because I'm popular and people like me, and I have,
I
I'm a
don't
huge.
think having pictures behind you defines that you're
It does.
popular, nor
It
that
does.
people
It
like you. No,
does.
I think it means you took pictures with people. I don't know.
I actually
I'm
I have the soup Nazi too back there. Signed.
see, does the soup Nazi like you? Tony, it
Hey,
was nice to be with you, man. Thank you.
thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll see you again.
So long.